Welcome back. I'm top music attorney, Miss Crystal, and we have day 9. We're going to be doing a recap of all the testimony that we heard today. You guys know the drill. We're going to give a couple minutes for everyone to get in. We are broadcasting right now on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So before we get to the intro, I thought maybe I would start off with those of you who are new to this channel and maybe you subscribed because you have seen our live streams on this trial. I'm an entertainment attorney. I'm a real life attorney. I have a law firm, and a part of why I have not actually been broadcasting live and giving you a live reaction to the trial is just because I got my day job. Now, I was thinking maybe tomorrow I would try to do an actual live stream while the trial is going on. I think it would be kind of cool to get real-time responses, real-time reactions. I'm going to see if I can squeeze that in between clients and meetings, but you know how it is when you're the boss and you have a law firm to run, you got to do what you got to do. But I will be honest that I've been pretty glued to this trial and listening as much as I can because it's very fascinating. We're still in the middle of Johnny Depp putting on his case. If you guys remember, we have counter cases here. Johnny Depp is suing Amber Heard, and Amber Heard is countersuing. They are both defamation claims. So this has been pretty interesting because there's a lot of emotional stuff that's involved here. There's a lot of looking behind, smoke and mirrors, so to speak, with celebrities, which is interesting to a lot of people. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe we'll do a live stream tomorrow, but in the day job portion of kind of what I do, something interesting that happened today was, I was approached, and some of you guys know that in my other life, other than lawyering, I am a musician, and so I was approached by a record label that's interested in signing me, and I thought I would kind of share this story because it kind of goes to anyone who is trying to run their own business. You don't have to be in the music business, right? But if you are kind of an entrepreneur and you're doing things yourself, it was interesting because I do get approached by a lot of different companies and record labels who want to sign me. And, a part of what I do is I create programs teaching record labels how to build and how to be successful. I have different courses for not only record labels, but also artists. So the point just being, I'm doing these deals every single day. I know what they look like. I'm negotiating with major record labels. So I'm very familiar with industry standards. So, honestly, I just kind of cut to the chase on this call. And I'm like, I understand that most record label deals are going to be X, Y, and Z. I'm not down with that. This is basically what I am willing to do. And I just kind of laid my cards out. And, one thing that I will say is that if you are ever the person that is trying to pitch something to someone else, you definitely need to come kind of prepared because for me, being an established artist and record label owner myself, kind of my questions that I were kicking back to this record label were just things like, okay, how are we going to partner? What are you going to do? How are we going to scale? And, I don't know if that took this person by surprise, but you definitely have to be prepared and have answers. And sometimes the answers are, I don't really know. I'm not prepared. So I was just kind of thinking about that following this call as far as, being someone and looking for a good partner in my business as a music business. I put out products, but guys, with this law channel, I have my YouTube channel here. I also have the different products that I have built, courses for record labels, for artists, and with all of that comes, you know, um, a lot of understanding on how to do everything yourself. So if you are an entrepreneur, this is just kind of like a little note I wanted to give out, regardless of what side that you are on. But like I said, we're going to get into this. I just wanted to kind of give a couple minutes for you guys to get here. I am seeing the comments coming in. Hello, hello. Let's go. We have that Orko in the chat as well. That Orko is my music producer. He's my man. He's also the show producer. So if you guys ever see like an arm coming in frame to fix something, that is that Orko. Watched some of your vids in the past. Forgot your channel. Happy I found it again. Jack, so glad that you can be here. Joel, imagine the legal fees for both parties. Guys, we talked about this yesterday. What's the likelihood that, that their fees are not in the millions and millions and millions of dollars? There's just no way. That's exactly where both Amber and Johnny Depp are at right now. And the best that they can hope for is that one of them is going to win and they'll be able to seek reimbursement for those attorney's fees, which is going to be very expensive. Thanks for all the great information. Love the show. Derek, thank you very much for being here. Jay, if you're going to go to sleep, this is like your ASMR. You're just kind of listening to this, you're relaxing. I don't know if you guys have seen, but on Miss Crystal, on my Miss Crystal Instagram, we've been doing some relaxation techniques on a live stream. Is the recap for just Johnny's side or all of it? So what we're doing today, and I'm going to go ahead and get into this, we're doing a recap of what happened today. Now, as we kind of are going through this discussion, we may pull in some other stuff. We've been talking about the trial as a whole. This is going to be going for about 7 weeks, and we are in only week 3. And so that's why there is a lot to unpack in general, but specifically from today, we heard from 3 different witnesses. We're going to get into all of it, so stay tuned. Hi guys, I'm top music attorney Miss Crystal. I'm an entertainment attorney, public speaker, and creator of the Top Music Attorney School for artists and record labels. I'm the owner of Dukes Up Records, and most importantly, I'm an independent artist. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those bell notifications so you don't miss my weekly videos giving you my best tips on the music business, industry news updates, and teaching you how to stay legally protected. Let's go. All right, so one thing I'm committing to trying to do today a little bit better is to pay attention to the chat. So a lot of the videos that I have released on this channel are kind of pre-recorded, but it's been important to me that we try to do more live videos so that I can actually interact with you guys, which has been cool. I want your feedback. I want your takes on what you've seen, because sometimes, some of you are watching this, day in and day out, kind of like I am, but some of you are just kind of catching clips. And so it's, what's your perception of what's happening? What's your opinion? So please feel free to kind of drop your questions in the comments. I'm going to see if I can do a little bit better of a job tonight. Marlene, I can't understand how there are so many tapes. She set him up. Well, we saw that one video recording, and we've heard a lot of different audio recordings. And of course, in the one, as we reference it as being the Johnny Depp slamming cabinets footage, where he discovered in the midst of kind of, being kind of upset, you see him kind of pouring what we believe to be his wine. And then discovering that Amber had been recording him, he becomes, of course, very upset about that. And you guys, when it comes to recording laws, it's different, right? So, for example, in Arizona versus California, the laws in one state versus another will be one way versus 2 ways. So the way that it works is that if you are on a phone call with someone and you are recording them, or you're on a video chat and you're recording them, in some states you can do that. So it's one way, as we call it, versus if it's 2 way, you need to have permission from both sides to record. So in the instance that you then have a trial, a civil trial like this, sometimes certain evidence that you captured would not be permitted to be admitted into evidence. Obviously, in this case, and as it relates to audio and visual recordings that we are seeing and hearing, we are now in the state of Virginia, so those did, in fact, get in. Yeah, so we're on day 9. So guys, as kind of a recap of where we're at, we have heard testimony from a couples counselor. We have heard from Johnny Depp himself, which was over the course of several days. We've also heard from one of the primary caretakers for Johnny Depp. And one of the kind of takeaways from me, at least, was Johnny Depp, when he kind of had this moment of saying that he was upset when he realized what he had been paying his doctors, because he had a primary care physician as well as a nurse practitioner. And he was just kind of reflecting when he was giving his testimony that he realized what he had been paying them, which was $100,000 a month to kind of be on call. And he was pretty upset about that. He's like, I'm paying these people millions of dollars collectively. And, I see, for example, the nurse practitioner like twice. She'll be on set for something. So a part of kind of, I think, the interest as we're watching this trial is getting to see what it's like to be Johnny Depp, to be Amber Heard, their lifestyle. And even today, we got information, and our first witness that took the stand was Tarly Roberts, and she's the island manager, okay, for Johnny Depp. So, now we're talking about someone who runs a private island that Johnny Depp owns and describing what it's like, which we're going to get into. You subscribed. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. Yeah, $100,000 a month. Ouch. I go every once in a while to get vitamin IVs, and it's just supposed to help kind of replenish your everything and make you feel a little bit better. And I was talking to my nurse at the time, and I go, "It would be amazing if I could just get you to come to my house. How much is that going to cost?" That wasn't going to happen. I go, "I know it's going to be expensive. I know what Johnny Depp has to pay to have that in-home care." All right, so let's get into it. Miss Roberts, on her direct examination, right? So we talked about direct examination is when the witness has an opportunity to kind of answer questions very open ended, right? So it's just kind of, the attorney for Johnny Depp will be, tell me about this, and then the witness can go off and talk about what they want to talk about. So Miss Roberts, in her direct examination, she's talking about the fact that she is the island manager. And so in the questions of, well, what does that mean? What does that entail? And she goes, well, that means I'm basically in charge of making sure that everything operationally is running smooth. And so that means staff oversight, getting groceries, right? Stocking up. And they were kind of describing what the island, is comprised of. And it sounds like obviously it's a big piece of land. There's of course a beach, there's a main home, and then there's multiple other little, beachfront houses that are kind of there, so that there can be guests that stay all at one time. And so she was also describing there's a cafe, and the majority of the time when Johnny and Amber are having a lot of their meals, if they're not in the main home, they'll be in the cafe. And so she's just talking about basically managing this piece of Johnny's estate in the middle of nowhere, right? And so that, she really emphasized, including when they were talking about when Johnny and Amber got married, the fact that they wanted to make sure everything was private. There can't be paparazzi taking pictures. So it was interesting to hear kind of describing that. And then she would talk about, how often she would see Johnny and Amber. And she would just be like, other than maybe bringing meals, right? So if I'm bringing dinner, I'm bringing alcohol, I may or may not stay and have a meal with them, but talking about the interactions, which I think was important to kind of lay the foundation of her testimony of, okay, so then what did you see? And that was something that both sides attorneys kind of harped on. So, the attorney for Johnny Depp kind of laid the groundwork on what she's doing, and then she got into this. When did you see them fighting? What did you hear? What did you know? And she described instances of where Amber was, quote, viciously attacking Johnny. And so she would say, there was an instance, for example, I, heard them fighting. I saw Johnny come out, and he had, some kind of red mark on his nose, and doing what she could to kind of separate them. Now, of course, in the cross examination, when challenged on, well, you didn't really see what's in the house, right? You're only kind of passing them maybe on a daily basis a couple of times, but you're not hanging out with them in any kind of meaningful capacity. So that's how Amber Heard's attorneys then tried to kind of attack the credibility of how much can she really know, even though she is the island manager, she's not personally hanging out with them in most instances. Now, something we did hear her say is that, this reoccurring sentiment that Amber likes to drink, and she seems to be drinking every day, and sometimes multiple glasses of wine, which, again, I don't think necessarily proves one thing or another. But we have heard that now consistently, including, from, not, we don't want to call him the butler, but Mr. Ben King, who testified yesterday. And he, again, was kind of a house manager that traveled with Amber and Johnny. Here, let's go back to the comments really fast. Finally get to see you live for the first time. Yeah, I was just saying we need to do more live streams because it's been really cool to get to know you guys. And so when I kind of pre-record the videos, we missed this opportunity. So that's why I am trying to be on the live a little bit more. Joel, can Amber decide to plead guilty in the middle of trial? Well, we've seen sometimes, where let's say a cross examination is getting very heated, right? And so someone will accidentally admit something that then proves the validity of the other person's case. And so, you can settle, right? But even if all the bad facts come out and Amber went up and she goes, I did all these terrible things, I made up these lies, they're still likely to go through, the various procedure, but you can move for summary judgment. And, when we've been in court, sometimes we've done that because at the conclusion of someone's testimony, some huge revelation comes out, and we will feel that it's enough for the judge or the jury to make a decision, depending on what kind of trial it is. And so you move for a directed verdict. So there's all kinds of things that could happen, including settlement, right? So at any point in a litigation case, prior to the case starting, in the middle of the case, and even when the case is done, the parties can still settle. And the times that we often see that is that someone maybe has litigation fatigue, they don't want to continue, or maybe someone gets a judgment, right? So let's say, Amber wins this and she gets a judgment for $100 million. Well, if that's the case, and maybe Johnny Depp doesn't have 100 million, they can still settle for something less that he can pay, maybe an installment. So there's a lot of different ways that this can go. I don't think there's going to be early resolution of anything. I think we're going to be going through the full 7 weeks. But that just means that we have the ability to hang out a little bit more, right? Chris, good to see you. What is that? Liking to drink a lot has nothing to do with being violent. A violent person will always be violent. They just use alcohol as a scapegoat. Okay, so to the extent that we have heard a lot of testimony about Amber drinking a lot, and we've also heard testimony about Johnny drinking a lot and using drugs, and does that in fact prove the case that there has been violence? No, but it's important as far as setting the foundation of what were the state of minds, what was happening in these critical moments. Does Amber have the type of money to pay Johnny if she loses? Now, here's what happened. When they went through their divorce, and this came up in the first couple of days of trial, it came out that Amber had been paid $7 million as part of a settlement deal. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. When you divorce, you go to court. And you can litigate if there is a disagreement about what should happen with your assets, right, as a married couple. And so sometimes we get involved, and I've represented clients on these family law cases where we are in the ugliness of fighting over assets, fighting over money and bank accounts, but you can decide to settle. Okay, so there was settlement in their case. And as part of that, Amber was paid $7 million. And something that came out early in the trial was, well, Amber had agreed to accept the $7 million and she was going to donate it. She was going to donate it to various causes. And apparently that didn't happen. And so I think that they, again, are trying to kind of paint this picture of maybe she's just money hungry and this is all an act. So to answer your question, does she have the kind of money if Johnny wins? He's seeking 50 million. Will he get 50 million? It's up to the jury. But I don't know if she has 20 million. I don't know if she has 15 million. Johnny Depp obviously is the more successful actor, and he's had more years in the industry. Amber Heard is 35 years old. I think she's had some big roles. But that's also why we get into settlements, right? So if Johnny is successful and Amber Heard is not able to pay whatever that judgment is, more than likely the attorneys would work to come up with an amount that she would be able to pay. Sarah, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're doing a lot of reaction videos. We have reaction videos on this channel for music videos, but also just reacting to things happening in the news. All right, I see Brooklyn, California. There must have been a question asked that I missed. Pat, thank you very much for being here. Amber does have 50 million, but Elon Musk doesn't. But Elon Musk does. He does. And didn't he just buy Twitter? How do you guys feel about that? I don't know. I'm about to open a floodgate by asking that question. All right, so let's go back. So then on cross-examination, right, for Miss Roberts, the island manager, We heard that, she was being paid $10,000 a month for her job. So that's over 100K a year. And then the questions went to, well, you saw Amber a lot. Did you see her wearing makeup? And the island manager would just say, it looked like she wasn't wearing makeup most of the time. I don't think that she was wearing makeup most of the time. And so Amber's attorney then kind of went to what she typically has been saying to the witnesses, for example, to Isaac, who we discussed had lived in the building. He was a childhood friend of Johnny's. And so Isaac had given testimony about seeing Amber consistently, not seeing any bruises. And so the attorney went back to, well, how would you know? How do you know if she's wearing makeup? Aren't you aware that there are makeup brands that provide basically the flawless, natural look? And of course, what's the island manager going to say to those other than, no, I just didn't think that she was wearing makeup. I didn't see any bruises. And then just kind of talking again about the fighting or abuse. And the majority of it sounded, like any fighting that Amber is alleging, any abuse that she suffered, that it wasn't seen, at least by the island manager. And so the island manager was really only able to testify to one or two events, including that she saw Johnny coming out of the house and he had, of course, the welt and the injury on his nose. And then I did feel that the attorney was kind of going all over the place. And I had this note about this particular female attorney on behalf of Amber Heard with the opening statements that she's very off the cuff. And it's something to be kind of respected with attorneys, that they will not really have notes and they are just kind of doing, their presentations from memory. But I also think that's a little risky because you can seem to be maybe a little underprepared and you might be kind of going all over the place. And that seemed to kind of happen at the tail end of this cross examination. She seemed to just be kind of referring to her handwritten notes and asking questions about last minute cancellations for Christmas. And does she know why? Isn't that unusual? But never really bringing it home to a point. So it was a pretty short, direct and cross examination. But it was interesting, again, as far as just now we know that Johnny Depp has a private island. All right, so let's move on. The next witness that we heard from was Shannon Curry, and she's a forensic psychologist. Now, Miss Curry kind of killed the game in my mind as far as just being a very concise witness. She was very well spoken, and she seemed to have very clear idea of, her report, which she had just noted multiple times. She's like, I have a 25-page report that I have prepared for trial. And so, in certain instances, she wasn't able to recall, but she was able to pretty concisely answer a lot of the questions. And then when things got a little aggressive on the cross-examination, which we're going to talk about, I thought she handled herself very well, because we discussed this with Johnny Depp's cross-examination, right? So when you have an attorney who is aggressively asking you questions about all the bad things that you've done, all the horrible articles that were written about you, you're such a drunk, you're such a drug addict, by implication of the questions, of course. It's difficult, I'm sure, for anyone to keep their cool and to just answer the question. And so we talked about, at least with Johnny Depp, he seemed to get a little cheeky here and there, and he seemed to kind of sass the attorney asking the questions, which I don't think plays very well for the jury. I think it plays amazing on social media. You add some fun music, you do a little compilation. But Miss Curry, on the other hand, when in the same kind of instance being asked these questions, she handled herself really well. So let's get into the direct examination. Let's start with that. So she was testifying. Of course, you have to set the foundation of what qualifies this person to give expert testimony. So on a recent trial that I handled, one of our experts was coming in, and it had to do with car improvements and repairs. And so our expert, on behalf of our client, had to lay foundation about what qualifies him to be able to say, I know anything about car improvements. And so therefore, what I'm going to talk about in today's testimony is relevant, and I am, in fact, an expert. So we heard that for Miss Curry. And so she talked about her background, that she is a forensic psychologist. She talked about her different certifications. And then from there, I just kind of felt that she was building the story of what qualifies her as an expert. And she seemed to do it in just a very pleasant way. She was concise, she was moving, she was kind of smiling, and I almost felt like maybe even too much at one point, but she just seemed very likable and believable. Okay. So when she did kind of start getting into the juicy stuff, she's talking about her analysis of Amber Heard. And I believe she said the total interview, we'll call it, that she did of Amber Heard was up to 14 hours. Okay, so this was a very intensive, if this forensic psychologist is going to make an opinion and determination about Amber Heard in any kind of way, you want to make sure that it is based on a lot of time spent with the actual person and having reviewed, of course, any relevant evidence. And she had some interesting things to say. Let's go back to the comments for a second before we get into that. I would hate to be in their shoes. What happened to privacy these days? Well, look, Joel, in this case, they are the ones putting their lives on display. We talked about this yesterday. When you are considering going to trial and having a lot of your personal information become public record, you have to have the right motivations, hopefully, but you have to just, understand that there's not only a cost financially associated with going through a trial, but there's a cost to your family, there's a cost to you emotionally, and both of them decided obviously to continue, and they haven't settled, right? So at any point they could have decided to just deal with this privately, but we also know that particularly with Johnny Depp, this has become kind of this mission of his to have his voice heard, to have an opportunity to say his piece. And he did talk about this on his last day of testimony, as far as just feeling like he never had an opportunity to tell his side of the story because he felt like, press would skew it and manipulate it. And this is really his moment to tell that side, because he goes, you can't unring the bell. It's done. She said, I abused her. And now she's saying that he sexually assaulted her. So, the allegations are pretty serious, and and he wants to have his day in court. And conversely, we're going to be getting into Amber Heard's case in chief, and we're going to be hearing the other side of this. There are always two sides of every story. I can't imagine, though, that having any of this pretty embarrassing audio recordings, video recordings on display is pleasant for either of them. And, in fact, you could kind of see that as we were listening to some particular audios and just seeing the discomfort, not only in the court, but it looked like with Johnny as well as Amber. Brady has a question. How much longer will this trial go on? As of right now, we understand that it's going to be about 7 weeks. And so we are in week 3 right now. So we are going on for a little while. We think that Amber is likely to testify, not this week, but maybe in week 5. It's not clear right now. We haven't had any official announcement on when she will testify. But we did hear, of course, from Johnny. So he has concluded all of his testimony, but we will be sure to cover when we get to Amber's testimony as well. Brady, they're on day 9. Thank you for that. They are just bleeding money. I mean, you guys look at their attorney tables, right? So look at, all of the attorneys that are sitting around Johnny Depp. Every single one of those people are billing out. And let's say that they're billing out like $5,000 a day per person. And this has been going on for years. And, this trial by itself will be going on for 7 weeks. So again, in the millions and millions of dollars. Didn't they have a prenup? So we heard testimony that one of the things that had frustrated and angered Amber was that, Johnny Depp had approached her after some advice from his sister and some other people to get a prenup before they got married. That didn't happen. They got married. And then Johnny again approached her following advice from his sister and some friends to get a postnup, and of which, then caused an enraged response from Amber, another fight, and I don't think that they actually ever signed anything. If anyone knows differently, let me know. Can you do a live stream with YouTube, the lead attorney? Oh, YouTuber, the lead attorney. I'll have to check out that channel. I've been kind of discovering some other YouTube channels, which has been very helpful, of attorneys who have been kind of live streaming this, which is cool. And And so I appreciate the recommendation. All right, so let's go back to the testimony of where we were at. Okay, so we were hearing testimony from Miss Curry, who is the forensic psychologist, and she had come to the point where she was going to explain her results of, her examination of Amber Heard and what her report said. And she had some not so nice things to say, and she basically said that Amber Heard is borderline personality disorder, and that there were a lot of common traits for this type of personality disorder that Amber has. And so she talked about things like Amber being very hot headed, or this personality type being very hot headed, easy to enrage, but then also starting to describe things like the person is charming and pleasant and very sophisticated in social settings, and describing that a person like this can mirror people that they meet to essentially create a version of the person that they're talking to, so they become immediately likable. And so, in a way, it kind of echoed when we heard Johnny Depp testifying to what it felt like when he first met Amber, and how that first year was magical and it was too good to be true. And so, at least for me, I was wondering, okay, that made me think of Johnny's description of she was one way initially, and then she became someone totally different. So Miss Curry also going on to describe this kind of personality type as, narcissistic, and becoming very enraged when she would not get what she wanted, to maybe resort to some kind of physical violence. And so as she was kind of again discussing these different traits, it made us kind of recall some of this evidence that we had heard from Johnny's testimony, with the audio recordings, with the video recordings, and also this common theme of Johnny seems to be kind of this laid back guy. He doesn't really like to engage in fights, and he has, since he was young, had a tendency to pull away. If he's fighting, he wants to go to another room. He wants to leave. He doesn't want to engage. And we kind of heard it in audio recording to that effect, where Johnny was saying, I want to leave now. Let's take a couple hours apart and I'll come back and we'll get back together and we'll talk about this. But then Amber becoming more and more increasingly upset and saying, don't leave. You're stressing me out. You're going to kill me. This is going to kill me. And so in the way that Miss Curry was kind of describing some of these traits, it again kind of went back to things that we have heard. And so her report seemed very believable in its accuracy. And again, in her just kind of delivery and her knowledge about, psychology in general. So now on cross examination. So now Amber Heard's attorneys are getting up and they're going to try to impact her credibility, to undermine her credibility, right? So that maybe the jury will not give as much weight to her report, which is very damaging, right, for Amber's case. So, for example, one of the questions that the attorney had was, okay, Miss Curry, isn't it true that you went to Johnny Depp's house, you had dinner with him, and you drank some drinks? Isn't that true? And Miss Curry would respond, and she, on multiple occasions, and she said, no, that's not quite right. I went to Johnny's house to be interviewed by his legal team, and dinner was served. And so when the attorney kind of went back to this a couple of different times, she just would reinforce that response and be like, perhaps there was a drink, perhaps I had a drink, but it's not quite as you're describing, as far as like, I'm getting together with Johnny and having a date. So, going back to, I think Miss Curry kind of held her own pretty well and just did her best to clarify when something needs to be clarified, or just to answer a question, right, when being asked, because sometimes there's bad facts. Sometimes there are things that you will be asked as a witness that you just have to say. And so trying to kind of add on top of it and to clarify and this and that is not really why you're there. You need to just answer, and then, the attorney for the other side will have an opportunity to clarify if they need to clarify later. So in any case, that was kind of one example. And the attorney seemed to be trying to attack her credibility as it relates to the fact that she had not really testified on a lot of domestic abuse cases, and specifically intimate partner violence cases. But, something on redirect that Miss Curry reinforced was just that, her job was to do this kind of interview put together her report based on her expert opinions and not to give basically her opinion on whether she thinks there was abuse. And she really clarified that in the last couple of minutes of her testimony because she's just saying, my job is just to describe what I'm seeing as far as is there some kind of borderline personality disorder? This is what I saw. These are the traits that I saw from Amber from our time together. But it's not my job to say whether there's been a crime committed. And in fact, the reason why I'm different from a therapist is because a therapist innately is going to try to protect their client. They're innately just going to want to help them in some kind of way, whether they know it or not, that there'll be some kind of bias. And so she goes, that's why specifically, my job is just to tell you what my report was and to give you my analysis about those facts and not about the crimes in themselves. Joel can't wait to see Amber on the stand. I think we're all very interested for sure. I didn't hear anything today about Amber potentially being bipolar, but I think that the borderline personality disorder and the way that she was painted was definitely not great for her case. Yeah, and then, something else on cross examination we were seeing was that they tried to kind of almost paint this as Miss Curry using this opportunity to try to be famous. Okay. So, using this opportunity not to do her job and to try to give, truthful, transparent information, but that because this was kind of a unique case for her and because it was for Johnny Depp, who apparently she's seen movies, she likes him as an actor, that would create a bias. Now, this is always going to be the position that the other side needs to make, right? So they always want to try to attack the credibility of the witness by showing that there's some kind of bias. And so we saw that with a lot of the witnesses that were like friends of Johnny, right? Or worked for him or, were paid in some kind of way by him. And to say, basically, aren't you just saying all this stuff because you owe Johnny something? So, I think nonetheless, she did a really good job because it's a very kind of stressful process when you have to go and give testimony and you're being cross-examined. But nonetheless, I found, not only her testimony to be credible, but I just thought in general she held her own pretty well. That's interesting how they qualify these witnesses. Yeah, so I mean, there's an initial process, right? So I go back to when I have handled trials and we are selecting our witnesses in general, right? Because you will have normal witnesses and then you have expert witnesses. And an expert is there to testify to something that they are an expert on. And so when you're kind of selecting your witnesses and building your cases, it's up to you. So in this case, it was Johnny and his team, and specifically his attorneys. So they're looking at all the potential witnesses, looking at the fact that this is still only a small amount of time that they have to get through a ton of information and they have to build their case. They need to paint a picture about the kind of guy Johnny is. They need to hear from Johnny about why he did certain things. Why did he say certain things? Bad facts, stuff that doesn't play well for him. But then we also now need to solidify that with expert testimony to say, well, actually, Amber was likely the aggressor. Johnny probably was, trying to retreat and she would hit him, she would hurt him, she would do things to try to get him to stay. And by continuously kind of hitting on those points, because we hear things being reiterated through the different witnesses, that it sticks with the jury so that when the jury goes into deliberation and they're going to consider all of the evidence, they will have this kind of fresh in their minds. You miss Jack Sparrow? Were you a fan of all 1 through 5? I think they got to 5, right? I think that a lot of people really loved number 1. They were kinda into number 2, and then some people kinda teeter off after that as far as how much they liked the series. Yeah, those witnesses are returning the favor. Johnny, according to all friends, is very generous. We did hear that. Look, and I think anyone who kind of puts their friends up, without any pay for rent and sweets and this and that, I think that doing right by your friends is great. But equally, how much can that account for if there actually was any kind of abuse, if there was any kind of assault. These are separate issues, but all that goes to paint the picture. Was it likely that Johnny did this? Did he actually do this? Because of your knowledge in the music industry, can you serve as an expert witness in a trial? In fact, early in my career, I was asked to serve as a witness in a trial and to basically give my opinions about some contracts and procedure and industry standard as someone not only that is an entertainment attorney that does do music business law, but I've been in the music business myself as an artist since I was like 4. I've been in the music business in general. And so for all those reasons, qualifying me as an expert is likely something that they would be able to do for cases revolving around, music business, entertainment business. So great question, and the answer is yes. All right, guys. So that's our day 9 recap. I don't know if you're interested in kind of going through and watching some of this with me tomorrow, but I was thinking that maybe we'll try live streaming. So I would say just make sure your notifications are on for this channel. So if we do decide to pop on, you can join me. We'll hang out. It will be a great time. So I will check back in with you guys one way or another tomorrow. Make sure you come and subscribe on social media. So we do the long form content here, but we do all the nice little clips to consolidate the information in like 1 minute for you on all social media platforms. So make sure you go and join. Instagram is definitely the best place to catch us, but we are everywhere. Thank you, that Orko, for running today's show. I'm going to get out of here, but I will see you guys on the next one. I'm top music attorney, Miss KRYSTLE.